when you're hunting the big woods, you almost have to back up a little bit sometimes because you don't know exactly where he's laying, but you know where he's going. You kind of get back to where the trails start coming together a little bit better. If you try to pick one bed, he might walk right past you and you never even know. Losing odds because you're getting farther away, but at the same time, you might actually have a chance of seeing him.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're back for another episode of the East Meets West Hunt Podcast, and I've got Paul Putera back on. It's been a year, man, since you've been on here, but you and I talk seems like just about every week.
Yeah, it was like talking to people that know what they're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Man, I enjoy getting your text because it's funny. I feel like very similar to myself with things. You're just like, you're in mode and you're scouting or doing something just clicks in your head and you're just like, like you write it out just to like kind of help work through the situation or whatever. And just, it's pretty neat to see the way that your brain works with finding these whitetails, which you do pretty damn well.
Yep.
But you been out much this summer scouting at all?
Quite a bit. Slowed down a little bit with the heat, but other than that, I mean, I try to get in quite a few miles. I did most of my scouting after the season. Like I'll start, I think right around February is where I really kick it off, and then I'll put on 12, 15 miles a day in February up until green up,
Yeah.
So, and then I go back through this time of year and I drop cameras and the stuff I found,
Yeah, no, your approach of dropping cameras now is a good idea is a good idea, but a lot of times what I'll end up doing is leaving them out when I do find them in the spring. Like I'll carry them with. It's just the hardest part with that is just not knowing what the vegetation is going to look like and whether you're going to get, shit growing in front of it and then taking up all your batteries. But
yeah, I have quite a few that I have out too, but like I found a lot of new spots this spring, so I had to get more cameras to continue that. So, but usually once I get a camera out in the spot, I just leave it there.
Yeah.
The couple of cameras I've had in the same spots for 3 or 4 years now. I just leave them and change the batteries. And
I don't know why this year not this year. I do it all the time, but I went and I pulled the last of my cameras like at the beginning of it was like. There was some cameras I pulled in the beginning of April, and I'm like, why didn't I just bring batteries with me and swap them out? Because they're going to the same place anyways.
Yeah.
So that's some of them I did leave out, but there's others that as now or that we're in late July as we're recording this. I'm like, man, I still got a lot of work to do with getting cameras out. But you really started running more cameras. Was it last year?
Yeah, last year. Yeah, because my buddy hunts with me a lot, so he likes seeing confirmation of stuff too. So I've been running more cameras, so he's positive on the results too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is nice, like to get. I love looking at photos and it's like Christmas morning checking those cards and being able to see what's on there per se. But
yeah.
It's almost like a full-time job trying to manage all of them.
Yeah. And I don't put the cameras like where I'm like using them to hunt, per se, but like I put them in places where I know when that deer is up in that area, he's going to come through and I'll get him on camera in that spot,
just to know that he's there.
Yeah. So a lot of them are just night photos and stuff like that I'll get, But then from there, if he's in that area, if if it's already a pre-scouted spot, I'm just going to go back to where he was when I scouted that area, and 95% of the time, that's usually where he's going to be. You know, he'll be in this spot here, or that coming off of his camera. You know, they tend to have the same kind of habits every year. You know.
Yeah. Do you find that in your areas, like consistencies with year over year?
Yeah, and the big bucks, they always, even if that buck is dead, another buck, if he's in that area, he's probably using the same spots.
Yep.
You know?
Man, I see that a lot too. It just seems like most of the areas that I've hunted for a long period of time, the big bucks are in the same areas. Even if one's been dead for 5 years, you know, the next generation seems to kind of move into the same spots.
I mean, you get delays sometimes. Like if you get one that gets killed, it might take 2 or 3 years sometimes for another one to come back. But once another one's of age, he's going to be running the same drill.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's a good point. There's an area that I'm hunting that the big one got killed a couple years ago, and last year was not very good in there at all. It just didn't seem like anything I knew was the same. But I got to keep reminding myself that's like, all right, there's some good ones up and coming that are coming through there this year that may start following some of those trails and those patterns again. Do you find that like with rub lines and stuff too, as far as like they tend to re-pick up once another buck gets to that age or moves in, basically? Yeah,
it's like they just kind of sense this is the way they got to do it up there, you know. Just, it either between does or pressure or food or whatever, they just always seem to want to go the same ways.
Yeah. So going back when you were talking about trail cameras there, when you said that, you know, you're running more, but you're not putting them in the places that you really plan on hunting. Are you mostly like spreading your cameras out quite a bit, or are you putting quite a few cameras in one area?
Yeah, I usually spread them out pretty good. You know, I'll put like 2 or 3 in one area, and then the next best spot 2 or 3 miles down, I'll put 2 or 3 in that spot, you know, just like the focal points in that area, like big primary scrapes out in a flat or something where they're just going to be just the terrain all just naturally just makes them go through it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You find a lot of that if you track them in the snow and stuff, you'll track big bucks and you're just, every time a big buck goes through here, he's cutting through this one little gap, you know, so. Put a camera in that, you know, probably big signpost rubs down in something like that, or big scrape. You know, I really like the big signpost rubs. That's great information there.
Do you find many of those in your spots?
Not too many, but when I do, they're good.
Yeah. Man, I would agree. Same thing. I don't even find signposts in every area. It doesn't seem like I'm probably just missing them, but they when I do find them, they've been good. Like you and I text back and forth on that, but the more I've been running cameras on signposts, it's pretty awesome to see. You know, like in my experience, I've seen it where in a couple of them, it was like one specific deer would actually hit that rub, and then the others in the area would come by and, you know, they might even rub their, you know, forehead gland on it a little bit or sniff it or lick it or whatever, and then just kind of treat it like a scrape.
Yeah. I even get does on them.
Yeah, I agree.
They're sitting there sniffing it, and, you know, and I think those signposts, a lot of the times it's just there's not a signpost there to be rubbed, you know. You find a spot that you're like, man, this would be a spot to find one, but there's just not a tree for it, you know? And sometimes you take some spot like that and you throw a camera on it and go, whoa, like this is actually really good. You don't have any sign that there's actually a deer doing anything in there, but it just looks right. And then you're amazed how many deer pass through it.
Yeah. Do you, what type of trees do you typically find your signposts on?
Big hemlocks usually.
Okay. Yeah, same here.
Yeah. And then cedars sometimes, but not as much.
Yeah, because what's the trees up north that everyone talks about? Is the ash trees? Is it up in the northeast?
That mountain ash?
Something, yeah. I've always heard that those track. I was just up at an event up there with all those trackers, and they were talking about it. But yeah, it seems to be hemlocks for you know, and you're in Pennsylvania and New Jersey there, so that would make sense.
Yeah, New York too.
New York, okay, gotcha. Huh.
Yeah. Another one's smooth sumac trees. You'll find them. You find those clusters of them. If there's a sumac tree growing, you'll find some good stuff on them. But usually that's more out towards like the farming, agriculture stuff with the more invasive trees growing in the area and stuff. You know, but up in the mountains, it's usually just big hemlocks or something like that.
Do you ever, you know, when you talk about the clusters there, do you ever see where there's like a bunch of, it seems like it's like white birch or aspen trees or anything like that with that white bark? When I find clusters of those, sometimes I'll find clusters of rubs that are hit every year. And I mean, I don't know if that's technically considered a signpost, but it's like, it seems like
it kind of is. It just, it, instead of being one big tree, it's just a bunch of them, you know?
Yeah. I find that
visual,
sometimes.
You know, it's a visual, you know, they see that cluster, you know, or they see that lone hemlock in the hardwoods, you know, it just kind of, it stands out. And I think that's what's really drawing them to it. You know, same thing like a scrape. You got the licking branch hanging down. They see that. It's a visual thing.
Yeah, that is interesting how that works. I mean, it's the same thing with the scrapes. You know, in my areas, it's beech and hemlocks are where you're finding most of the scrapes, because you know the beech, they hold their leaves. It seems like the longest, and then hemlocks just don't, obviously, but that tends to give them that visual a little bit more.
It's funny too. I find a lot of scrapes under hemlocks. Yeah, and it's. You wouldn't think it would be, because they try to use the branch and they just break it off as soon as they start playing with it. But for some reason, I find some of the best scrapes under a hemlock tree. You know,
that is kind of interesting, because that's where I find my biggest scrapes are either beech or hemlock, and the hemlock ones are exactly right. It doesn't bend, doesn't have that flexibility like a beech tree does, and they tend to just snap off. But you notice that, like, when you find those good community scrapes under hemlocks, there's just multiple licking branches, probably because they break them off and it kind of pisses them off, so they pick a new branch.
And then you get them; they'll be stretching out as far as they can on their hind legs, trying to reach another branch up above to do it again.
Yeah, and I think those hemlocks, I mean, I feel like those needles or whatever's on there is like holds that scent better too. Like when when it rubs up on there, it just seems to hold it in there a little bit better than just a normal branch.
Yeah, it's something different about them from a regular like pine tree or something. Something different about it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you find, when you're talking about your cameras and setting them up in those places, do you find you ever hunting near them, or typically is it really very situational?
I will hunt them closer to the rut, like end of October into like November. I definitely get some big ones daylighting on those cameras, so I'll put in some effort on them then. But like usually early October, I'll get those bucks on camera, but it'll be like 3:00 in the morning, like middle of the night, something weird. They'll come in. So it's like, okay, I gotta go to where they are at this point. But if they're up and moving in those mountains, it's like probably one of the highest percentage places to get consistency is one of those spots, because they're not really running off of as much pressure up there. It's just huge woods, so they could be here one day and over there the next. It's like, but if they're crossing right here when they go from there to there, that might be actually a better place to set up.
Well, yeah, I remember when you were texting me, it was a little while ago, but I remember you mentioning something about, like, you're finding too in the big woods areas where there's so much randomness to sometimes what these deer are doing, that sometimes hunting the actual, bedding areas that you think of is putting your odds worse than it is hunting that scrape they're coming to check.
Yeah.
You want to
I
explain
really
that?
think that's the case, because I could have a bedding area that's 500-600 acres of swamps and laurel and stuff. It's like, who knows where that deer is going to come through there, But if he's got a destination to go check that scrape, that's higher odds, It's funny. I get those bucks on camera in the rut like the funniest times too. Like they'll be on that at 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like weird times, midday, And it's strange because if you look at the times from all the other deer on those spots, he ain't there when all the other deer are around. He shows up when nobody is around. And I think he just doesn't want to interact with anything or something. He just shows up when it's quiet, And then like even early October, like early season, I'll get deer on those cameras at like sunset, sunrise in the morning and stuff. But that big buck is hitting it middle of the night when there's no other deer passing by it. It's like all the other deer already went to where they want to go, and then he wanders in when nobody's around.
It's kind of like my strategy for going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I hate being around when there's a lot of people there. So, there's certain times right after normal work hours, I'm not going to go there. Sundays after church gets out, like I'm not going to go there. Got to find the times when there's the least amount of people in there. And I think that holds true. But, like so what do you do? Like when you say you're talking about in October and you get a big buck on your camera on a scrape middle of the night, like what's your play from that? Are you thinking like, oh, he could be coming from a long ways away, or do you kind of have those spots in your head already based off of your scouting from back in the spring?
He's not generally coming from super far away. I mean, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. If he's coming from far away, but like usually you could get a direction of where he's coming in from on the picture or something, be like, he's probably coming from that buck bedding point I found or something, and I'll just backtrack it in there. And usually you'll wind up finding a rub line coming from that way or something that'll kind of double up on your confirmation. And then I'm like, well, okay, now I got to go set up in that tree that I picked out 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it kind of work.
When I know he's coming out of like a bedding point or something, I want to get within 170, 200 yards of him if I can, So I usually just dive right into it,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Do your areas typically get a lot of hunting pressure?
On and off. It's like some areas are hammered, and then other areas people just like kind of forget about,
Yeah, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot here recently. And actually, I had Johnny in an area with me, and I was having him look at it. It was very flat, not much terrain, but just swamps and big wood stuff. And I was showing him this one scrape that was on the edge of this herbicide cut, and I was like, this big deer I was hunting was hitting it all up until like October 18th. Like once a week, he'd hit it in daylight. And then, after that, I saw him once near there, October 30th, and I never saw him again. But he was, he had brought up, he's like, what was the hunting pressure like that early October? I was like, non-existent.
Yeah.
There's no oak trees, there's no anything. He's comfortable, and then probably me putting pressure in there started, working him back in that cover a little bit more. But that was an example of like, me trying to figure. I still don't know where that deer bed's at. Like I spent most of spring in there, and I have no freaking clue.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of areas where I think he could be.
Yeah, and you might never find it because he just doesn't use it enough to show the sign.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Like some of these really big deer I get on, I find and stuff. You get where they're actually at, and it doesn't look like there's a big deer. Like there's not rubs or sign or anything. Like unless you find like the point he's laying on, and there's a bunch of poop laying around, you might not have anything to go off of. You
Yeah.
look at a spot and you're like, well, that would be a good place for a bed, but I don't see one there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I just look at that and go, that's probably where he's laying, you know, and you get good at it and you do it long enough, you're actually right a lot of times, It's just those bigger deer, they'll get into a spot for a little while and then they shift and they'll go to another place and they don't just sit there and burn a hole in the ground with the bed sometimes. Heck, I don't
Well,
know if they bed in the same bed more than once a month sometimes.
yeah, and it's tough to know whether, because both me and my dad have put cameras on beds, like hung them up high, tried to keep them out of their view, but who knows if they're knowing those cameras are there. But it was just so funny to see, like, even like the most worn down beds that a particular buck was only using it a few times a month, and then there was other deer that were using it. There was does, there was smaller bucks,
All
there
sorts
was
of deer use it.
yeah. It was just like, well, man, that kind of reduces some confidence in that in that strategy.
That's it. You almost when you're hunting the big woods, you almost have to back up a little bit sometimes from some of these spots because you don't know exactly where he's laying, but you know where he's going. So
Yep.
you kind of get back to where the trails start coming together a little bit better. If you try to pick one bed, he might walk right past you and you never even know.
Yeah.
You kind of like you're losing odds because you're getting farther away, but at the same time, you might actually have a chance of seeing them.
Oh no, definitely. And two, it's like a lot of times, at least for me, it seems like it just takes that right weather conditions or whatever to get them to come to those spots. And then the other times, like if I have the opportunity to hunt, I'm not gonna not hunt.
Yep.
But it's just looking at it a little bit differently. If I were, if I had limited days and could plan around it, I'd be playing around the weather for those spots more so.
I think people don't get, they're too impatient and they want to move right away. And I think some of these spots up in these bigger woods areas, you really just, if you think it's the best spot, sit it and give it time because he might show up 3 days from now, but he might be in the area, but he just won't go that way for 3 days.
Yeah.
So you gotta let it rest, or don't let it rest. Just keep sitting it, because if once he finally does come through there and he smells you, you want to be there to kill him before he figures that out. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, because what you're saying basically is like if you hunted it, a day or so, and then you went a few other places and come back, and if you miss that window of him coming through, he caught your scent, he caught that you were there.
Now it's shot.
Yep.
But up until that, it doesn't matter if your scent's on the ground or not because he ain't going through there anyway.
Yeah. 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 And it's where I struggle with that sometimes. And then I do sit last year during the rut, 10 out of the 14 days I hunted in one area. I might bounce a couple trees around, but I was all in this one basic spot. But when you have so many other places that you scout and stuff, there's so much temptation to want to move or give up on something too early and want that instant gratification.
It'll bite you. It bites you.
Yep.
You're better off just kind of maybe just sitting it for a little while and giving it a chance.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that. And even really at any time of the season with that too. It's just like, early mid, middle, and then obviously the rut. It's like that deer could be 2 miles away one day and then coming through there the next. But if you're just moving, then if you're moving all the time, how are you going to have those odds to line up with his travel route and everything with that?
If you want to be found and you're lost in the woods, the best thing to do is stay in one spot.
Yeah.
If you keep jumping around, it's going to be harder to get found.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you're hunting big woods, that's one thing. But if you're hunting big marshes or something like that, I can understand why you would want to jump around a little bit more because it's more constricted on the travel. You know what I mean? Like you get into a big marsh or something, you could like see the trails coming through. It's like, yeah, he's coming this way. If he walks over there, he's drowning. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna come this way. So like you can make more moves, but like the bigger woods, they can walk anywhere they want, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and even I mean, I think areas with terrain makes it a little bit easier to predict some of that movement. But even then,
Yep.
I've seen deer do whatever they want to sometimes, going up just steep places and everything else. But one thing I've been looking at lately as I've been trying to really like dive into these areas that I've been in, and looking at past experiences and how I watch bucks move. And a lot of times I'm just finding these little tiny, like basically like spring seep, like drains. If you look on LiDAR, you see those little drains that are coming down through that. They're using those to travel up and down.
Yep.
And it really can help you, focus in on those spots.
Yeah. And it's something it's a focal point,
Yeah.
some kind of focal point. Say you got the scrapes, there's a focal point with that big scrape there. You got a focal point with that big signpost rub. It's something that's gonna like bring the deer over. Even something as stupid as you find like a huge top that blew down in a windstorm or something. Set up closer to that because the deer are gonna see that and come over and investigate it. And you might get a shot because they're gonna try to eat the buds off of it or something.
Yeah.
Just something little stupid little things like that to get them in range.
Well, I think, and that was something else you'd said to me the other day of like how sometimes we give these deer too much credit on things, and it's like reading what's in front of us and letting, we can't create what's going to happen. It's just got to read what's in front of you and use common sense with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that deer is going to do what he's going to want to do. And you got to figure out what he wants to do and just work off of whatever that is.
Yeah. And what's the situation looking like for you this year with mast crop?
It's going to be interesting. I'm going to say that because we got a big hit on gypsy moths this year. So they kind of shocked a lot of the trees, and I've been walking around this time of year now. I've been checking oaks, that I was going to be targeting and making sure that they're not losing their acorns, which a lot of them are. So like you walk under them, there's a lot of little pea-sized acorns that they're just kind of aborting because they're stressed. So they're just dropping the acorns really hard, So I do that, and then in the spring, when we start getting the frost hits, I usually get out and drive around on the mountains, and I'll just from my Jeep or a vantage point, I'll sit there and glass the ridges, and I'll look for where the frost damaged trees and stuff like that up on the mountains, and I'll take notes on where the frost damage was on the buds for the oaks and stuff like that, so I can kind of scratch places off. And if I see something that wasn't damaged going up a drainage or something, I'll go up and I'll check that this time of year for what's up there for acorns. You go after a big thunderstorm or something, when all the tops get blown around, you'll find some broken branches with acorns stuck to them and stuff like that. And I try to get ahead of it, because I don't want to find the deer making the sign. I want to kill them making the sign. So I don't want to, if you're too late sometimes, if you find it, he might be gone. He might be on the next ridge. But if you already know, like, okay, this ridge is going to have good acorns on it, I'm going to start focusing on this now.
Yep.
You're hunting sign that's not there yet.
The gypsy moth thing is interesting because you've had it for a few years now, haven't you?
We've right now we're getting hit with the gypsy moths. We're getting hit with the aphids that are killing the beech trees, and the ash borers that are killing all the ash trees. And then we got the spotted lanternflies coming in too. So they're doing all sorts of stuff.
Well, yeah, when I was down in Seven Springs for the Total Archery Challenge event, those mountains looked like it was February.
Yeah, that's
when
what
I
it
was
looks
in
like
there.
here. There's
It's eerie feeling.
you know, full sunlight, but at the same time, a lot of those trees are going to stress out and die. Which we kind of need because we don't have any good logging going around in this area. So there's nothing for the deer on the ground. So that because there's no brush, their patterns are huge. They can be here and then be miles away the next day because the food sources are horrible. But when all these trees are dying, now we're going to get all this young growth coming up in all the browse, and that's going to kind of tighten things down. I think it's going to make hunting a lot better.
Yeah. No, kind of nature's way of taking care of things since we weren't, doing the forestry practices or anything in there.
Mm-hmm.
No, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, you'd sent me a message about how you didn't mind gypsy moth kills in some areas because it is allowing that sunlight to come through. It's kind of like when you look at areas where there's a storm comes through and it blows down a bunch of trees. Then after that, everything's so green underneath there, and growing up, and it just gives that sunlight to the forest floor.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I see now. I'm seeing all sorts of weird forbs and flowers, stuff popping up that I've never seen growing in the woods in these areas because there's sunlight. All the woods are full of grass and stuff. It's usually just leaves this time of year because it's literally nighttime in the canopy. It's so dark and shaded up there, but now it's like open,
Yeah.
But it definitely affects some things for a while, maybe a year or two. It changes things up, but it gets better.
Yeah. What about, okay, so it's up in the air for you right now as far as what mass crops are looking like. Some areas that you found that do have some acorns in them, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got them all figured out and marked out, and I'll continue doing that until hunting season. I'll be checking. I like to just zip through places and just check food constantly,
Well, I mean, that can come to your favor as far as if there's limited stuff versus everything. Like right now in my areas, I haven't seen a year this good with, when I say good with, it's just like so much food. Like every oak tree I've checked, it has acorns on it. Every apple tree I've checked has apples on it. The black cherries that we had a storm there a few weeks ago, I was walking on this dirt road and I could see some of them laying on the ground already. And I'm like, holy cow.
What's good about that, I mean, it does kind of like trigger aggression in the deer. When you have that much food around, it seems like they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to starve this year. And they just start raking and destroying the woods, rubbing every tree. It's a lot easier to like pinpoint stuff that when you get those heavy mass crops, and it seems to start a lot earlier. Like instead of like closer to rut, the sign appearing, now it's like they're starting in September, and they just keep going, but like if I get a bad food year, it seems like everything just slows down more. The deer aren't gone, but they're just not being as aggressive. So it's a whole lot harder to like see sign, and like you got that's when you really need to have confidence and patience in your spots because it doesn't look as good. It might actually still be fine.
Yeah. No, I've been going around just marking apple trees like crazy. The hard part normally with apples is a lot of times they'll drop even before the season opens up and be pretty well scooped up. But this year seems like there's so many apples that they'd have to be, raining from now until the season for them all to be gone. So I'm like, I find when I find those apple trees, it's like that first week can be just absolutely killer. So I'm trying to get all those spots marked and figure out what deer are hitting these apple trees. Typically you start to see some apples falling in, mid late August. So you'll start to get to know what's going to be, in there feeding on them, but trying to get as many of those spots as possible, marked so I can hunt. And I was actually not supposed to be back for the opening day again this year, and I changed that when I saw all this food. I was like, I gotta be hunting.
Yeah, you can't pass up something that might be really good.
No, I think it could be because of that. But what happens, like, say you get an area where there's just like the entire thing is just covered with acorns dropping? Does that make it difficult for you, or are you still saying that they're leaving sign in ways that you can read it?
The deer are still going to be bedding in certain places. You know what I mean? Like those big bucks are going to still prefer to bed in certain areas in that area. So if there's hot food here, it might just be a bunch of does and little bucks using it, and that big buck's probably still going to be using his spot, and he'll just be eating his food over there where his good spot is.
Yeah,
he's not gonna abandon it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's more of, again, that's more where that preseason scouting or that postseason scout, whatever the heck you want to call it, back in the spring is so beneficial because you found those spots already and kind of know where he's gonna be at some of the time versus just coming across an area and the whole entire ridge is full of acorns. It might be a little bit more difficult to fine tune it.
Yeah, and over the years, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been hunting these mountains now, so it's like I really have the places I need to be narrowed down pretty well at this point. So like every year after the hunting season, I go through everything. I just run through it. I don't spend time looking for beds or doing any of that kind of scouting. I just go through it and look at the general view of what's going on in this area. And was there a big buck in here last year? Should I put some effort into this? Like I do a lot of shed hunting. So like I find the sheds in the same places every year. So I always go through and comb through those spots where I find sheds and, okay, this has got a good buck in here. This one has a smaller buck, but he's got really nice genetics that are going to turn into something. I need to keep an eye on him,
Yeah.
Some stuff I build off of right away, and some stuff I'm working on a deer for several years before I even go in and hunt him. I'm like, he's 3.5 now, but he's a solid buck. 2 years from now, I'll go and kill him if he's still there.
Yeah. It's fun when you start to do that with areas. Like I can think of a few bucks now that I got to get cameras in this week of. I'm like, all right, there's a couple of deer that were, there. I remember I was getting photos of them at 2 years old and 3 years old, and one's going to be 4, one's going to probably be 5 this year if they made it through. But it's like, all right, I've learned a lot about these deer without even hunting them throughout this time.
Yep. And that's what I did with that big buck last year in late season. It's like,
oh yeah,
killed that
a lot of sheds.
Yeah, I have sheds from that deer every year out of that same bedding area. And I every year I'd pick up his sheds and be like, wow, that's a nice deer, and then I'd leave him alone. And then picked up his sheds the following year. I'm like, wow, that's a nice buck. Like he's getting there. And then this year I stuck a camera in there and I'm like, holy crap, I need to go kill him now. So as soon as I knew that he was going to be in that spot, it was a late season spot. He was going in there to hide from all the gun pressure. And then he just stayed in there and wintered in this location, and then he would shed eventually. So I'm like, he's going to be in here after gun season. So I just stayed out of it. And I waited until I knew he was going to just be absolutely living in that spot every day. And that's when I went in and hunted him. I picked the highest percentage chance to kill that deer, and I used it then. I probably could have hunted him earlier, but the odds of me killing him weren't as good. So I just stayed out. I was like, I'll hunt another deer until this one's ready. And then
I
killed
worked
that
out
deer
for you.
in, I think, 7 days. I went in there.
What day was it? December 23rd? Did you kill him?
Yeah, something like that. It was real late. It was almost the end of the season.
Yeah, because I remember when you sent me the pictures on your phone of them, and you had sent me trail camera pictures of them before,
Yeah.
and you were very confident going in on that deer.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to kill him. It's just a matter of time. He's here, and I sat on the edge of that big swamp for 7 days, knowing that he was eventually going to come out and eat, like, cause there's a lot of acorns out still outside where he was. And I'm like, eventually he's going to build up the confidence to get up and come out of here, but I actually had a camera within 50 yards of his bed that I threw in like September or October, and I was just letting it soak. And that deer was on that camera almost every day from the beginning of gun season until when I shot him. He was
Real.
living in like a 3-acre spot. He just going in circles in there all times of the day, just roaming around, milling around in there.
Huh.
And then he finally was like, I'm going to come out. And I was sitting there waiting for him, but I was literally set up 7 days in a row within 170 yards of him.
Were you in the same tree all 7 days?
Probably 5 out of the 7, I sat in the same tree.
Okay.
It was during the muzzle loader. So I took my lock on and I literally climbed up a hemlock tree, like till my nose was bleeding. And I was probably like 50 feet in the air. I just climbed the whole tree until it got too skinny, but I'm like, man, I could see everything because it's all laurel in there and I couldn't see anything with the laurel. So I'm like, the higher I go, the more I can see down into it, and then finally I get to that height and I'm like, this is the perfect tree, and I only hunted different tree couple days because the wind was wrong,
Okay.
so I just was like, I'm going to get a different angle so my wind doesn't blow in on his bed, but finally he came out with, what happened is that there's a bunch of does came out on the one side of me, probably like 15 does that were hiding in there. And they're all on the one side of me, milling around. And I think he could hear all that racket. And I heard a couple bucks get up. And he came out. It was the last buck coming out. I had a little spike come out underneath my tree. And then a couple little fork horns and stuff. And he was in the back. And all of a sudden, I see the rack coming through the laurel and popping through. I'm like, oh, here we go. Got the gun out and he came out, it was like 60 yards when I shot him and just piled him up.
Nice. That's in like the spot that he was bedding in. What did that look like as far as that 3-acre like plot? Was it just like, was it thick stuff or what was kind of in there?
It's just like a jungle of laurel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you couldn't even get through it. It was just, it was like laurel and then just like little openings where they would lay down in the laurel, like under random hemlock trees, and it's just like a little bit of a faint kind of hillside in there. It was like kind of like a little knoll almost.
Mm-hmm.
It was just real faint. And then if he wanted to escape from there, he could come from that patch and run straight into a huge swamp. So nothing could get him. Anytime somebody would, because I actually had people on that camera near his bed walking through it during gun season several times, during the 6-day firearm. So like there was people walking within 50 yards of where he was laying, but every time he heard somebody coming, he'd go in. I actually had him the one day, he actually had him running past my camera with his tail up, heading towards that swamp. And then I had a guy on the camera like half hour later. And then another hour or so later, I got him back sneaking up the trail, coming past the camera, going back to that bed. So he'd run in there and he'd circle right back. That was his whole strategy. He just like, he's like, I ain't leaving. I'm staying right here.
I was wondering, like, if you're gonna say if he actually left or if he would just like hold tight and not move while they were coming by.
Yeah, because I knew I was going to be hunting that deer. I mean, I put a couple cameras around the outside of that area to see if I can get him, like coming down different trails. And I'd never had that deer on a camera anywhere around that until the day I killed him. He just stayed in that spot. It was weird. And when I shot him, he was like skin and bones. Like he was like starving himself staying in there.
Huh.
You know, he was real skinny and everything, but he didn't want to leave. You know, but every one of his sheds I picked up within 50 yards of where he was hanging out. You know, over 3 years. So that was his whole strategy. It was just to go in there and not move.
Yeah.
He's like,
That's awesome. Did and did you have, when you had cameras in the surrounding areas, did you get pictures of them any other time of year, like before that,
oh yeah,
anywhere around there?
I had him the whole season on and off in that area, and I'd have him coming out of that area, but I had cameras within 250 yards of where he was. I never had a daylight picture of that deer except for the camera that was right near that bedding area, like inside, that was soaking. Like everything else was pitch black. And not like an hour or two after dark, like 2-3 hours after dark. The deer he was completely nocturnal deer, you know. But he just lived in that spot. He didn't want to go nowhere.
Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. And again, I mean, that comes down to the fact that, you know, a lot of other people could have had that same information that you had and not killed that deer from not waiting it out.
Yeah. Yeah. They'd sit a day or two and give up, or they sit a day or two and try to move in, and then they just bust them, you know, which it wouldn't have mattered in that situation. Probably would have just came back. But, you know, if somebody else did that, they'd get discouraged, you know. I was just like, I'm like, that deer, I just have to wait them, you know. And it's not the first time I did that late season with a muzzleloader like that. You know, I killed a big 10-pointer that was just 205 pounds in like 2012, and it was the same thing. It was same scenario, sheds all over the place where he was hiding late season, and I waited him out and I killed him. You know, so I did it twice.
And yeah, and we were like, so I didn't have a whole lot of experience hunting late season until last year, because in PA with us having one buck tag and not, you know, being able to hunt that late, but being able to do that. And same with my dad. It was funny, like he picks up so many sheds, and he's like, I'm going to all the areas that I picked up sheds in December and January. Yep. And I think he saw more bucks then than he did during archery season, and missing one with a flintlock, and right on him. It was pretty crazy to see how that translated. You know, that was something, again, I didn't have a ton of experience hunting that time of year to think about it, but it was like that's a really good time of year to kill a deer.
Yeah, it's deadly because they don't do nothing. They just stay in the same places. You know, so if you didn't fill your tag and you know where a big buck is living and dropping antlers every year, it's like, get on it. You know, that's like Pennsylvania, you only got one tag, so it's hard to capitalize on that because you end up shooting something before late season a lot of times. You know, but with Jersey, I could shoot 7 bucks in Jersey. Yeah, so like I can hunt that pattern every year in Jersey. You know. But it's a lot harder to find big bucks in Jersey.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that.
Like, when you find them, you know. But that's when all the pressure is up in Jersey, anyways, during the gun season. Really, it's every place I hunt has people going through it. There's nothing that isn't touched. Like at some point during the gun season, somebody ran a gang through there with the deer drive. You know? I don't envy the amount of people that, I mean, it's just the nature of the area that there's just more people that live there, you know? Yep.
That make it so much harder.
Yep.
What about, how did your season go before that, as far as earlier on?
I killed 2 smaller bucks during the bow season.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And what did you feel like with your bow season? Because you hunted a lot last year. How many days do you think you spent in a tree?
Just about every one of them.
Because you're laid off during that time of year, correct?
Yeah, and I save all my vacation. So like I take a whole like month off before I get laid off. So I just go. I'll go. I'll hunt a lot of afternoons that time of year because I will like work in the mornings or something to get some stuff done. But I'm just getting stuff done that I need to get done for myself for the following year.
Yeah.
Because I'm welding and stuff like that. So I'm just manufacturing parts for welding. Stuff that I gotta have ready for next year. So it's just stupid stuff I gotta do. So I just go in a couple hours every day, get the stuff I need done for next year, and then I'll go out in the afternoon. And if I got like really good weather or something, I'll just take off and go in the morning and hunt the morning too. Because I will hunt mornings, early season, late season, I don't care. If I feel like it's a good day to go, I'll go.
Yeah. And like especially with that, like in the early season, when you're hunting those mornings, why do you think it's that much, or why do you think it's that good, or why do you want to be in there in the mornings? What's kind of your play?
I try to pick days I think they're going to be running late. Like if you get a cold snap coming in or something, something that's going to, if I see the deer are getting a little active and they're not going to just go right back to bed, I go in and I'll hunt in the morning or something, but the spot has to be perfect to get in for access. I don't want to blow something out that I could kill it easier in the afternoon by trying to hunt it in the morning, so it's got to be a good access spot, so I have certain places that I'll determine and be like, man, if I hunt this in the morning, this will be freaking awesome, but it might be a spot that's really hard to get in the afternoon too.
Yeah.
I've had that before. I've actually sat in the morning to shoot a deer in the afternoon because I knew I couldn't get to that spot in the afternoon without getting busted. But I knew if I could get in there ahead of time and just wait, then you can kill that deer, Because sometimes you find some big buck bed or something. You're like, man, if I could get in this tree, I'd have him. But he could see me coming for 2 miles away. But if you're already sitting in that tree, just sitting there,
yeah, just twiddling your thumbs all day until he's
sitting
ready
there
to
like,
move.
okay, he's going to be getting up any time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that like when you're saying like access to be able to get in, are you thinking like more so trying to find like the back way into the bedding spot, like not where they're going to be during the nighttime?
Yeah. Trying to get in some kind of bulletproof way that I don't think they're going to go.
Yeah.
And get them going in the lay down or get them switching beds or something.
Yeah.
You might find a bedding area and you're like, man, this section of the bedding area is so nice for them to lay in the sun in the morning and warm up, but they're going to cook right here if they lay here all day. But if he gets up and walks into that dark cover over there in the afternoon, then you can kill them, so you can get in behind them, get into that shade bed. And when he gets up out of the sun bed and moves to the shaded area later on, make like 11, 12 o'clock, you're sitting there waiting for him, and I killed a nice one down on the river bottoms like that in 2020 like that. I killed a deer in the middle of the day, and I literally watched that deer come in and lay down, and then he got up around 10 o'clock and shifted beds again. I watched that deer. I think I watched him make 3 or 4 different beds, before he finally wandered over here to where I was going to shoot him. And he was coming over there to lay down under the tree I was under that was all shaded,
Well, and it's like in that situation, you could visually see it from being, open down there in that bottom. But honestly, I mean, that kind of stuff happens in the woods too.
Yeah, it does.
It's just, you can't see it.
Exactly. Yeah. Anybody that's gotten to like glass animals and watch them understands that, I think a lot of Western guys are going to know that a lot better.
Yeah.
you see that happening. It's happening everywhere. It's just you can't see it in the woods.
No, my cousin Mason says that all the time from hunting mule deer as much as he had. He's like, it made me a better whitetail hunter because I watch how he's like, how they bed and then they shift and they move. And then all of a sudden the sun's hitting here. The thermals are doing this and they're just kind of just moving throughout. And they might not move very far, but they just, move around to different spots just to get, a little bit better advantage.
Yep. Yeah. And it gives you that confidence about stuff too, because you kind of like, okay, I understand it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Confidence is like such a big thing. Like you got to know and feel good about it, and that's the hardest part. So like young guys, that's the hardest thing when they're starting out, is they just don't have the patience for things. And I think when you get older, it just naturally happens because you get old, a lot of guys, they peak out. You see them like start kill a ton of big bucks, and they're like 40s, 50s, and stuff like that because they're just slowing down a little bit, And it just
because they have confidence in their spots that they can sit there a little bit longer, or there's more knowing versus I don't know if this is a deer's going to come through here. I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they always say with the guys that track too. They're like the older trackers kill more big bucks because they just can't walk as fast anymore, so they have to slow down.
Yeah,
they're forced to like be more patient on it and not rush things, and
Do you know who Lanny Benoit is?
Yep.
So when I was at this event over the weekend, Lanny was doing some talks and stuff there, but all of a sudden he came over to my booth, and he has no idea, what the podcasts are or anything like that. But he just came in. He's like, "Hey, you mind if I just sit down and talk with you guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He sits down. He was just telling the stories, which was like the best thing to just listen to him as he was sipping on a Bloody Mary, just like go through and talk like these stories. And he's like, "You want to know the biggest fallacy out there with deer?" He's like, once they get really old, they're the easiest to kill because they walk slow like me. He's like, they don't want to run. They don't want to. He's like, those are my favorite ones. I get on a 10-year-old track. He's like, I know that deer's dying.
And he's right. It's same thing when you're bow hunting. It's the same theory, like those older bucks are just kind of like, I ain't going nowhere. You're like, you can't kick me out of here. This is where I live. Yeah. It's like, this is my spot. I'm going to do my thing. If he disappears, he probably is switching where he's living, and it's just a natural occurrence in his pattern. You're probably actually not pressuring him out of his spot sometimes.
Yeah.
They just
he may even know you're there, and he's still just like
they're like,
hanging out.
Look at this guy. I've seen him before.
He's like, look at that guy. He's trying to do that one sticking thing. Like, look at him. He's I read about that.
Climbing up this tree like this for.
He sticks out like a sore thumb up there. What is he doing?
Full top swinging.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong there. But, like what you're saying about that confidence thing, it's like going into new areas now. Just from doing it for so long, I can go into a spot and like visualize how it's going to work out. And it doesn't always work out that way, but you go in and you're like, okay, like you see a spot and you get excited. And it's almost like your mind tells you it's a really good spot before you know why. It's just because you're used to recognizing it.
You just feel it.
Yep.
Like something about this spot right here. I'm going to kill deer right here.
There was a spot this spring I went into, and I'd never walked in this area before, but I was looking at the map and I was like, man, this one bottom just looked really good. I'm like, I bet there's a crossing there. A bunch of ridge ran down to kind of a hub there. I'm like, probably a big scrape and like an old grade or logging road that went down through there. I'm like, and then I was driving the roads on the top, and I noticed there was a bunch of blowdowns going out, and I'm like, man, if these go all the way out to these points, that's going to create awesome bedding, and it pinches them down because it starts getting like, sticks over top of each other, these big trees, and they're going to have to funnel around there. And I went in there and found just this magnum scrape down at the bottom, and then started working my way up the draw and got to where it pinched down to where the blowdowns are coming there. I ended up finding a small shed there. And like, it was like 15 yards between all these blowdowns and where it dropped off steep into that draw. And it's like, man, you sit here for 5 days, you're going to kill a deer.
Yeah. And you did it efficiently because you thought about all that and you broke it down into steps when you were going in to check that spot. And you just didn't wander around and like, oh,
Yeah.
go check this over here, go check this over here. You looked at the area, and that's like the big difference. You look at that area and you could just, okay, this is going to work here. This is going to work here. This is going to work here. I need to go check this, and that. And if it's not there, I'm out. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it's exactly right. It took me 2 days to fully scout this spot, and I probably didn't even need that to get the information that I had. But I had these key places I want to go to, and I dropped 4 cameras in those locations, and it's like that's going to tell me what I need if there's a buck that I want to hunt there.
Yep.
That doesn't mean I'm hunting in those spots like you said where those cameras are specifically, but I ended up not even putting one on that big scrape in that bottom. More, I put it on the crossing because there was too many places for them to go around that scrape where there was just crossing that funneled where the bank was cut out, and it was like the deer have to come up through there, so I hung a camera there, and then up that draw at the top of it there was a big scrape with some good rubs around it, put a camera there, and then the next drainage over I did some of the same things, and it was just like you start to become more efficient with that stuff to be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got to go in there yet to. I'm waiting until August because I know you've talked about this before too, but I typically see bucks that'll come in back during the rut or in October, in August, show up on those cameras. So I'm waiting till after that to go in and check those. Check those cameras.
They're doing their excursions.
Yep.
They're doing that excursion route. Yeah, it's funny how that works. You'll get a big buck, it's like clockwork around August. They start popping up in these spots for 1 day.
Yep.
And they're just it's like they're like, oh, who's here next? And I've actually, because I run my camera so broad that I actually get some of those bucks doing that in August on different cameras, a couple miles apart over a couple days span. And then they ghost,
Yep.
It's really neat how that works.
It is, but I've come to rely on it so much of that's why I'm I got to make sure I have my cameras out, before that happens to really start to know what bucks are in the area. Because June and July is kind of a weird, you can get nice bucks on camera and stuff, but I feel like those August photos, even if it's one of them, tells you a lot more than even the rest of the summer.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes those really big bucks, they don't even show up until the second cycle in November on some of those spots. All of a sudden they just appear back there,
Yep.
They might have a better spot earlier in the rut, but then all of a sudden they're like, well, I better go get on them too. When they're running low on options, and then all of a sudden they circle back to them.
Yeah. No, that's, I agree with that. And it's funny, looking at all these places and going through it, and even if the vegetation looks different, you can find those similarities. For example, swaths of laurel remind me of clear cuts in a way of you find those little openings that are within that laurel and those little drains that run through. They move in similar occurrences in clear cuts and autumn olives, and you just start to see those different trends, and once you spend enough time in those types of areas, you can take that and apply it somewhere else so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. You get a clear cut with a little oak island on it, with a point going out on the oak island into the clear cut. The buck's bedding out on that point. Well, where do you see that? You see that in a marsh.
Yeah.
Instead of a clear cut, it's cattails, but it's the same deal. It's the same thing. That's what a lot of this stuff translates. No matter where you are in the country, it still works. A lot of this information. It's just you're not looking at the same habitat, but it's the same. The deer are still programmed in the brain the same way.
Yeah. Oh, for example, there's a spot that it has some terrain, but it's not very steep. A lot more rolling type stuff, and there's this big clear cut, and most of it's herbicide sprayed, but the one corner down towards the bottom isn't.
Yep.
And there's a ton of briars, and I found a big buck bed there, and then I found a matching set of sheds that I sent you a picture of before, and I was like, this makes sense. Like, he's bedding on the point of this, the stuff that wasn't sprayed. Right there, he's got briars within 50 yards of him he can sit there and feed on, but he can look out into the rest of this open clear cut that they had sprayed and then drop right down in this drainage and move. And like, everything just clicked when you looked at it. And it's like almost that same situation would lay out if you were in steeper terrain with a point of a ridge.
Yep.
But it's just, this is a vegetation point versus the terrain.
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild once you start, and it takes kind of rewiring your brain a little bit to look at it that way. And again, coming back to what I've heard you say before, is just like letting the deer tell you what they're doing, like, and just trying to look at it with an open mind of what it is.
Yep, exactly.
But I don't know, but I'm pretty excited for this upcoming year, just off of one, stuff I've found, and then even just camera data from last year of just like, man, I think it could be a pretty solid year. And it's been, I don't know about where you're at, but it's been pretty wet. And the woods are so green. Acorns are as big now as they should be in late August. Like, I mean, they're just like apples everything's just doing well. It seems like.
Yep. Yeah, it's good. We'll see what happens here, but I mean, it's not like I'm not worried about it. Whatever happens. It's not like the first time I've seen something. It's been like this in the past with the gypsy moths and stuff hammering around me, so I'm not really too worried. It's just I'll get on them.
Yep.
I'll find them.
Yeah. And it's funny learning from those, even being up there with those trackers, completely different way of hunting, but it's the same thing. Those trackers that do really, really well are just, they don't stop. They're just, they have the grit to figure it out and keep walking. And it's the same way with bow hunting from the standpoint, the guys like you that are successful year after year after year, you're not always dealt the best cards, and you're not always killing them on opening day. So it's just taking that time and putting in the work to figure out where they're at, and then trying to build those patterns in your head.
Yep. I tell you what, I want to get up there in those Adirondacks and bow hunt it.
That would be awesome.
I want to bow hunt it, because I think it's more possible than people realize. Like, I think you could do it that time of year, the time frame. I mean, even if you had to carry a bow during the rifle season, I think you're going to be able to get on some up there, because it's the same stuff everywhere. It's just huge woods, But
when you're saying bow hunt it, do you mean like stand hunt it?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go carry my true saddle back there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to change my strategy. I think I'll probably just be doing the same thing I do here. I'll just be doing it up there. Like I got to go in there after the season, after the snow melts, and I got to go in there and scout it like crazy. Check all the spots, find the big bucks, find everything, and then do the same strategy. Put the cameras out ahead of time. Do everything the same way, and I think it'll work fine.
Yeah. That's on my. I don't want to bow hunt it per se. I want to go up there and try to gun hunt it too. But
I gun hunted up there for years as a kid.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's my father started hunting up there.
Okay.
So like I kind of grew up as a kid learning. I know all the woods up there already. I know all. I've been to like every spot up there. I've had at least walk through it, like something, so.
Huh.
I got a lot of knowledge up there on where to go already. And, I know where a lot of historical stuff is up there, so I think I have a good head start to get up there and then do it with a bow.
Would you think you'd focus on the areas that they do like there is cutting there, or would you focus on some of the like the wilderness spots?
I'd be doing it in the wilderness because that's what I want to hunt the wilderness. You know,
Yep.
I think the buck harvest up there with the bow in the wilderness sections is like in the teens some years. You know,
Yep.
they kill a lot of the if you look at the numbers, it's kind of skewed on how it looks for statistics because a lot of the bucks that are killed up there are killed around the towns and stuff because you do get like clusters of like town deer like anywhere else. But
Hmm.
the actual deer killed in the remote wilderness sections is very low with a bow. You know, and I think the reason is people just are afraid of doing it
Yeah.
because you could find deer up there. You know, if you know what you're doing, you could find them. You know, and they're still doing deer stuff. You know,
Yeah, and I think like even from talking to a lot of the people that hunt it every year and live in those areas, it just seems like they're like, why would I take a bow out when I could take a gun and when
yeah,
snow comes? And that's just like the mentality with it. And I get it. It's like you have limited time, like that's
yeah.
the best odds to be able to shoot one.
And
But
most of the time when you shoot one up there, it's in bow range anyway. It's so thick in spots. You know,
yeah,
there's some places. I mean, you can get a long shot with a rifle, but very often you're shooting them like 50 yards or less.
yeah,
You know, I think that the biggest buck my dad shot up there, I think he killed it at like 10 yards. You know,
really.
jumped it down by a creek and just had no clue he was there. He was slipping down the creek edge and he jumped it. Big buck, big 10 pointer, like 200 something pounds. It's a really big deer, especially for the Adirondacks. They don't usually get up over 200 in that area, you know, but
Yeah, yeah. It like places like that are just I'm drawn to go in there because it's just like such a cool place to be at already,
mhm.
and then to be able to kill a nice buck in a place like that is even better. Like I think about that all the time of like the North Woods of like
Yeah,
Minnesota and some of those places that like that would be such a cool place to go hunt.
yeah. And the genetics up there are so unique. Like there's some really cool antlers on deer up there. Like you get a lot of these big palmated bladed racks and stuff. They're not always the biggest racks, but they look like moose sometimes with the way their antlers blade out. I mean, I had a really big one, probably 2010. I was tracking up there in the snow, and I jumped him, and it looked like a moose getting up. They just this big blades for antlers, like paddles. I was like, what is this thing? You know, I jumped him and he went like 200 yards and started making scrapes and stuff again. And then I followed him for like probably a mile, just walking, making scrapes. I'm trying to catch up to him. I'm trying to be quiet at the same time, just like right on his track. And then finally he gets up tangled with a doe on this one mountaintop and he starts chasing around and the doe comes down straight down the trail that I was walking up, following him. And she bolts and spooks at the last second at like 10 yards from me and takes off over the side of the hill. And I just see him go whoop, and down the side. And then I took off running. I chased that deer all the way down to the bottom, down into a big swamp. And then he just kept going. And then finally the snow started melting and I ran out of snow and I couldn't keep up with him. It
Oh,
was, I followed that deer all day. I was like, that was my chance because when I hunt in the Adirondacks, I have you only get the one tag for a rifle. If you shoot one in the Adirondacks, you can't shoot one in the Catskills. You know, so I couldn't hunt my down by my hunting camp over there back in the day. So I couldn't hunt by my hunting camp if I shoot something little up there. So I'm always trying to looking for the biggest buck up there to try to shoot one of the big ones up there. You know, but I should have just shot a couple of them to just get some more under my belt up there. But
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot you do you still have that hunting camp?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. I thought you said you did.
yeah, it's about falling down now.
Really?
Yeah, there's nobody to go, so it just sits there. Everybody I hunted with, we grew up gun hunting, New York and Pennsylvania and stuff. They're all old timers, and a lot of them are gone now, and a lot of them can't get out no more. And, so the camp just kind of died off over time, but
Yeah.
a lot of memories up in those camps.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, that's kind of how you grew up hunting, from I remember, right? That's up there with those guys.
Yep, yeah. I missed a lot of school when I was a kid. I almost didn't graduate some years. I missed so many days for hunting, because we go from New York State in the Adirondacks, then we go to the Southern Zone opener, and then we go to Pennsylvania. And then we'd come back to Jersey and we'd be hunting the gun season. I'd be gone for like a month out of school. I was just scraping by, just scraping by to get through, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because
no,
it was just so awesome to experience all that as a kid. It taught me so much and got me so far.
Did you guys track a lot? Like, I know you said you were tracking up there at some point. Yeah, was that kind of how you learned?
And stand hunting.
And stand hunting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lot of spots. My dad was really good at picking a spot in the Adirondacks where, like, he would see bucks coming through, and he would sit there and he'd kill a big buck every year up there. He'd always get something nice. I bet he killed 20, 30 big bucks in the Adirondacks.
Really?
Yeah, he's killed some really nice deer up there.
Huh.
And then my uncle, same thing. My uncle's really good at hunting up there. He shot tons of deer up there.
Are you traveling to any other states this year?
I'm just kind of sticking this year to Jersey and Pennsylvania, because I got the little one, so I got to keep you busy. Yeah, I'm going to stick around here for a year and be available if I need it needed. Which my wife's going to tell me to get out of here. You're annoying. Go hunting. So I'm not too concerned about that. But
that's the ticket, right? It's just, you got to be just annoying enough that they want to kick you out, and then it's not your decision to leave. It's theirs.
Yeah, she'll be like, why are you still here? She's like, go, get out of here, go hunting. All right, but outside of hunting, I'm home all the time. I don't do anything else really. And if I do something else outside of hunting season, the families here, they're getting involved.
Yeah, like you do a lot of fishing and stuff too in the off season, don't you?
Yeah. Now my daughter's getting to the age now she's getting in. She likes kayaking and stuff. So I bought her a nice new kayak, and we're going to start doing the kayaking together. Because I go on the wilderness trips with the kayak, and I'll go through the Adirondacks, through all the lakes, and chain them all together. I did the one year I did a 47-mile round trip with a canoe.
Really?
Yeah, just going from lake to lake to lake. Because they had the canoe routes all through there that just connect. You could paddle from one side of the Adirondacks to the other in a canoe.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a blast. So
yeah, I see so much country doing that too.
Yeah, and in the summertime, when you're paddling the canoe, all those little streams and lake shores and everything, that's where all the deer are that time of year. So you're looking at the big tracks in the sand and finding big deer. So 2 birds with 1 stone.
I say there's always a play to deer hunting with any of that stuff, because you do some other summer scouting in places that you use water access to. Yeah. And I remember you telling me before that you'd go kayak down there and check the banks and everything.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than walking through all that crap. Just paddle down the river and look at where they're crossing. Oh, there's a big buck that's working down in this area. Then
I'd imagine, especially in the Adirondacks, like this time of year, all the feed's going to be down low. Yeah. Or not all of it, but most of the feed's going to be down low in those big swampy bottoms and everything.
Yeah, pretty much all of it. They go up in the mountains in the fall, and then they come back down and they hang out along the rivers. In the summer, they follow the food, and then a lot of the deer migrate up there in the Adirondacks to yarding areas and stuff late season. So you don't always find sheds up there, but there's some places you do, because the bigger bucks sometimes don't want to go to the deer yards. And now that you're getting these mild winters, the deer aren't migrating as much as they used to. So
Yeah.
it's making it better. It's harder for the guys that want to track because they're getting less snow. But if you know what you're doing without the snow, now you got more deer to focus on, because it's getting harder to shoot them tracking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's kind of like when you're talking about those bigger deer not migrating, it's like that out west with big mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes they'll rather die in the winters up, in the mountains still versus dropping down low.
Yeah. I've seen it in the Adirondacks. The big bucks will get up with the moose, and they follow the moose around with the deep snow, and the moose knock down the trails, and then the bucks have somewhere to walk in the deep snow.
Huh.
They actually they use the moose up there, which is pretty neat. But
They're more friendly with them than they are the other deer.
yeah. Well, it's funny when you track deer in the snow. It's funny what they do sometimes. Like you might walk through an area in deep snow and come back in the afternoon and hit your boot tracks, and there'll be deer walking right down your trail. Because they're like, oh, that was the easiest way to walk, so they all stay on the path.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you just learn so much by following tracks in the snow,
Mm-hmm.
and just watching like what deer do and like how they kind of meander and how they work their way through the places. You learn so much that's harder to see in dry ground. And I know you've done well with dry ground tracking, but it's definitely not as easy.
The only reason I could do dry ground is because I did it with snow to begin with. So when you lose the track, you understand where they're going to be going.
Yeah.
And that all translates to regular hunting with a bow too, because you just look at a spot after you track deer enough and you track big bucks. You just know when you look at something, that's where that buck's coming through there. You follow enough deer in the snow, they all kind of have the same habits with that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and following tracks is like again, I've said that before, but I love doing that in late season or even after the season in the snow, of just following those tracks and seeing how they work their way through, because you can learn so much more. I mean, it's like you literally get to see where they're walking, where even with trail cameras at other times of year, you're just getting a picture of where they are right now. You really don't know how they're moving.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening. It takes all the guesswork out of it too. It's like you might think that's what it was doing, but actually now I understand why that deer is going this way. It's so cool following them, especially like around pressured areas. You follow that buck, and all of a sudden he stops and turns, and you're like, why is he turning? What is he doing? And then you're sitting there, and then and then all of a sudden you see him, he like cuts downwind, and then he goes right back to where he was going to go anyway. And then you walk over there, it's a tree stand. That deer knew that stand was there, hooked downwind, checked it, and then continued on. He was getting a whiff to make sure there wasn't somebody in it.
Yeah. Well, and even seeing how in those areas with pressure of how they escape, and that's what's whether you're the one hunting them or you're doing drives or whatever, but seeing how those deer move. Like there's some areas where they're running right off the ridge and crossing the creek, but a lot of times I see where they're just circling right back around, just trying to figure out how to get back into that area, and it's crazy to watch how they do that.
Yeah, and the best spots where you find the biggest bucks always have some kind of planned escape. It seems like they have this like bulletproof escape plan, and that's the reason why that buck is still alive. It's because he has that there, The bedding that doesn't have that doesn't hold big bucks because they die. They get caught. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really helps narrow out when you're looking for a big deer. You look at spots like that and you kind of think of it that way because you're like, this deer isn't being hunted with a gun now, but he sure as heck knows about it. And it's just programmed in his head to have that escape and have those certain scenarios. When you can identify that, it works the whole year.
Yeah, if you think about like a house layout for a human, or like say my house and my bedroom's in the back, and there's no doors that go out. So, technically an intruder would come in, either dead or I'm gonna have to fight my way out of it. Well, deer don't have the ability to fight back with guns. So like they have to plan it that they have a door that goes out of their bedroom that, drops out and gets them out of that danger.
Yeah. And if it doesn't set up right, it's just not going to hold a big deer.
Yeah, because they probably have set up in those other places and narrowly got away when they were younger and learned from that situation. I don't deer aren't programmed at 1 year old to be like, I'm going to be an old deer someday, so I got to start planning for this so I can be the king of the woods.
Yeah, they just screw up a lot and get lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, until they get wise with it. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I'm excited for this year. Like I said, I'm gonna use some of that camera data and try to plan out the year as far as places I'm going, see what the food's looking like, and really just run the plan out. Is that what? Like how much? The one thing I wanted to ask back about cameras was how much would you do anything with that camera data? I mean, I know you have a lot of it in your head, but do you do anything to keep yourself organized with it?
I should be. But it's all up here.
It's all up there.
It's all up here.
It seems like that's not uncommon, but I say most guys say that. They're just like, I'm just really good at remembering dates and remembering spots, and maybe have some photos on your phone there. I have to put it in front of me, on paper on my computer that I can refer back to. It helps me when I'm disgruntled or not having a good season to remember.
I can remember that, but if somebody tells me their name, I don't remember who they were. Like, oh yeah, who are you? Like, so there's some things that can't get in, and some things that just retain, and you get other stuff you push it out.
Yeah,
so it gets tough sometimes.
or like yesterday when you texted me, you're like, hey, what time's our podcast tonight? And I was like, no, that's tomorrow, Paul.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's I'll completely forget sometimes if I don't get a reminder on stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I probably should have texted you over the weekend that it was coming up, but it's funny how I think my girlfriend calls it selective hearing with me on what things I retain and what things I don't. She's like, I watch you on Instagram talking about all this stuff that you keep track of and you remember with hunting, and like you can't remember dinner plans or anything else that you got going on. And I'm like, maybe it's a little bit of that.
Birthdays are hard. Birthdays get tough. You're like, oh crap, now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's the day after.
Yeah. Where are you going? I gotta go out to the store. I'll be right back because I completely forgot to get you a birthday present.
Yeah.
I put it off for the last 2 months. Now I'm screwed. I got to go do it right now.
See, birthdays I remember a ways out, but then it's too early to action on it. It's not, for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be too early with this. I got to wait till, a couple weeks before, then I'll plan for it. But then I forget when that couple weeks before comes up.
Yeah. Smartphones make me look a lot smarter because now I could just put the date in there with an alarm clock.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Well, Paul, I think we'll wrap this one up here, and appreciate you coming on again and talking.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to see how the season lays out for you here, because I know you'll be hunting every day, and I'll be sure that there'll be some deer that are being drug out of the woods.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some fun this year, I'm sure.
Yep, especially getting to focus on a couple areas like that's nice, because it's like, okay, there's not planning for this trip or doing that. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I can focus on these spots.
Yeah, sitting in Ohio looking at pictures of deer I should be shooting here.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as you leave for a trip, they're going to show up on daylight every single day.
Yep. That's exactly how it always works.
Yeah.
Last couple of years, 3 years ago, I shot the opening day one in PA, and I haven't hunted opening day since, or opening week. And it was like, I had a cell cam in an area, and I'm driving back from South Dakota, and I get an alert, and I'm like, no. And it's like the big deer that I wanted to be hunting, just working that scrape an hour before dark, just out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But anyways, so Paul, I know you have Facebook, so people can find you on there. Paul Putera, you're always posting stuff in the different Facebook groups, and then on your page on there. So
make sure you tell me who you are or something if you send me a friend request, because there's so many of these stupid things popping up. I'm like, I don't even know if this person's real or not, because I still check every one of mine.
Yeah. I actually, on my Facebook page, I haven't even looked at friend requests in a long time, because it's like I was getting spammed so much for a long time. It was just like I don't even really get on there much. The only times I do get on there is, either to share stuff, and typically the top of my feed has your stuff in there, because it's probably the stuff I click on the most to read when it comes up. So you're like the only stuff I see. I don't even see any of my family or friends stuff that are local. But anyways, well, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. It's always fun.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.